After we had trained these groups in the hospital, we had set up a group program in the hospital to try to find out how to put groups together. That is, how do you do it? You could read the psychological literature and you could see that there were certain psychological principles that needed to be followed. But on the other hand, most of those articles were written about people who didn't have mental illness. And the problem that we were confronted with is, how do you do the same thing with the mentally ill? Can they learn to work as a group and whatever? And so in the hospital, we started putting them together in hospital work groups where they made decisions about each other, where they worked together, where they ate together, and where they helped one another make it from day to day. Then we compared them with groups who did not have that kind of group training. And what we found out was that if the groups had appropriate leadership, if there was one or two people in the group who really could do the jobs themselves, they could help the rest of the group members by clearly defining certain roles. Like one person, for example, all he wanted to do and was willing to do was to empty the cooking drawer after dishes had been washed. Put them up in the cupboard. So they said, okay, that's what you do. And when you can do more than that, then you talk to us and we'll give you a broader job and we'll increase the amount of money you get from our group. Each group had a certain amount of money each week to distribute among their own members in terms of the validity of their work and the degree to which they saw this as positive and so on. And so we trained them in the hospital up to those levels, and then we said, okay, now when they've reached this level, we'll move them into the community so that now we know they can make decisions, we know they can prepare their own food, we know they can do certain things. And what we didn't know and didn't understand clearly was that the hospital is a completely different environment than the community. So, to give you an example, the first day that they moved into the community, we had secured an old motel with several different rooms, and this is what we rented. We rented this from them, and we also got, it also had a kitchen, it had a dining room, and so it was really quite good for our type of project. But when they first got out there, the first day we trained them, we said, okay, now when you get there, remember, you have to put all your clothes up, you have to get the dining room ready for eating tonight, you've got to go shop and get some groceries, and these things we will expect you to do. So I went out late in the afternoon, and nobody was there. There wasn't a single patient, or ex-patients as they wanted to call themselves, in the motel area. The truck that they had brought out there with all of their clothes and whatever in it was sitting there, and the clothes, however, had been taken to the rooms and hung up, and that was about it. So I didn't know quite what to do, and I thought, well, the only thing I can do really is just wait here till they come back. So an hour or two later, they started drifting in, coming back. And when they first came back, I saw the first two members and so on, and they came up and, oh, how are you, Dr. Fairweather, and so on. I said, where have you been? They said, oh, we've been celebrating. What are you celebrating? We're celebrating our getting out of that jail, you know, that terrible situation in which we found ourselves. And I said, well, where's everybody else? Well, they're down there celebrating too. We got a couple bars down there, and they're down there celebrating and having a great time. And I said, well, why don't you go right down there and get him? Tell him Dr. Fairweather's here and wants to see him now. Okay. And that was my first big experience with the First Lodge Society. Then things started to get better, and they started training, and then they found out that they had to have leaders for each group who was really knowledgeable. So then they set up a leadership training program. So after they got the leaders trained, and they had demonstrated that they could take care of the Lodge Society and they purchased a couple of trucks to work with, which the grant is paid for. Then they began to do reasonably well. They needed another 6 months or so really to get everything going right, but at any rate, they were on the road then to success.